Hello everybody, I have decided to call Angel up and Angel started talking, so I've stuck my recorder on. Hello Angel!
Good morning.
Yeah,
And
good
happy
afternoon.
soon to be New Year.
It is, isn't it?
Oh, well, by the time they listen to this, it's the New Year.
It probably will be, yeah. Anyway, so you said to me, have you heard about Tartarian and the metropolitan areas? So carry on.
Well, what I was saying is there's a couple of things rabbit holes that I've gone down. One of them I think is great, is the My Lunch guy. And he pointed out, pretty obviously, how there are a lot of constructions of what are currently usually libraries, not medicinal.
What's the word?
The courthouses, the municipal, I can't even say that word right now. Municipalities, municipal buildings. The word is slipping my tongue.
You said it all right. Yeah, I think they'll get the message.
That are currently being used, and also big banks, old money banks that have these buildings that the construction methods don't really fit the time period when they say they were constructed. They just don't.
I knew you were going to get to that point. I think that's what I thought you were going to. That's why I had to stick the recorder on. Carry on.
There are people that are actually doing Freedom of Information requests, asking, for documentation on these buildings, and here in the States, they're coming up with goose eggs. Because they don't know how these buildings were constructed, even though they say, oh, we built this as the town hall. It's like, okay, who'd you pay? Where are the permits?
Plans?
Who did the blueprints? Who did
Yeah.
So, it's getting pretty obvious that
they moved into it.
Yes, that we overtook something previous, and I think it's actually easy to do. It can be. One
thing I find strange, though, one of it was that some of those windows that are down there, they're all blocked up. We don't know how long they've been blocked up for, but they're not rotten. That was
Windows.
very strange.
Well,
they've been covered up, so they've been underground or put behind something so you don't realise the windows go.
Or there was a mud flood. There seems to be some sort of mud flood. Maybe there was, just like it said in the Bible, every now and then maybe there is a flood. The earth goes through a.
I do think that, but listen. It's like if you get on the when I got on the train at Mickey's, and you went into London, it was little hill, little hill, little hill. People living down there, people living up there, down there, up there, down there. And then when they made the road in London, they made it like that, and that's why some of the buildings got trapped below, because they were in the below bit, because they put the road in. I think that's why some of it happens. And I'm not saying there wasn't floods, but I think some of it's to do with when they put the road in, because the road is pretty flat in London. But everything seems to be little hills, little hills. Maybe not for you. Some states are, got 6 states or something, flat as a pancake. But we have little hills.
I think there's. I've told you this. This is something that I,
put the road in,
if I.
And then some things were below it, and the rest of it was above it. I think that's how they did the road in London. But anyway, carry on.
I was in Illinois once. I went there for a friend's wedding, and while we were there, his wife-to-be said, "Hey, you want to go see the mounds?" I said, "Do I want to go see the mounds?" She says, "Yeah, they're big piles of dirt." I said, "No, I don't want to go see big piles of dirt." She's like, "All right, let's go get some hots." And I'm like, "What the heck's a hot?" She's like, "They're hot dogs." I'm like, "All right." So anyway, then come to find out, I was 2 miles away from the Monk Mound, which is another geographical, I like to refer to them as waypoints.
I'm going to put that picture in for us to look at while you're talking.
You can do that. Go ahead. Illinois, Monk Mound, or whatever it is.
I'm going to do
they
that
have
now.
7 different ones, from what I understand. There's not just one. Just like how you have Salisbury Hill, and then you've got blah, blah, blah Hill, and blah, blah, blah Hill, and you got one right, around the corner from you. In Illinois, they have several of them.
We've got them up now.
So.
No, they do look like pyramids, don't they? Quite definitely does.
Constructions, but again, I have an argument with anybody who wants to argue with me what the definition of a pyramid is.
Sorry, just very quickly. Sorry, just cutting in. There's a picture there of a mound, and it says, "My mysterious pre-Columbian settlement," and that looks like Merlin's mound in Marlborough.
Well, that's what I was saying. You have them over there in the UK, and we have them here in the States. And yes, they are, because they are, as a gentleman named Carl Monk pointed out, and he wrote it in the book, and you can get to it. I made a quick link at thecode.greatgeezapyramid.com. You can get to his videos. You can start down that rabbit hole. He has 3 books. I have them on PDF.
What happened to us,
and he did 9 hours of videos.
Andrew, what would happen to us for that whole thing to be there and to be completely covered in grass?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's covered in grass or not, because it was designed to be read from altitude. Yeah. I feel it was a dirigible hot air balloon, or lighter than air vehicles like a blimp. I guess a hot air balloon is technically a hot air balloon a lighter than air balloon. I don't know if it classifies as that. I think it's its own category, hot air balloon.
But it was entrance there. It's Kahaki. That's what they're called, isn't it? Kahaki or whatever it is. That one. That's like the entrance into the.
That one's in Ohio.
That's like the entrance into the Long Barrow near Avebury. That's what it's like at the beginning. It's got things up at the door. It's just like that. I know you can't see it, but you'll see it on the video.
I'm really right. I'm of the belief at this current time that just like there's also one. I guess you don't want me to use the name. That's it's like Unlimited Tartarnia or something like that, or Unleashing Tartarnia or something like that, where the guy has been going gung-ho on just pointing out different places all over the world, not just in one particular country, but how construction methods and styles and the look and feel. It's like when you go to an airport, you go to a different airport, you kind of know where it is. You know, there's a bathroom, you know, there's an eatery, you know, it's a standardized construction all over the place. And that is not something that, number one, the construction methods are overachievements of the time period, and that how they were made really goes back to the construction.
I bet you want to punch yourself right now for not going to see these things. Oh, what stupid happened? Me.
Sorry, you can retro blend in the video after effect when in editing, post editing.
No, it's okay. But I bet you wish you'd been to see them now.
Oh, yes, now. But honestly, if I went there then, this was a decade and a half, 2 decades ago. If when I was there, I would have said, "Hey, these are big mounds." I was not open to understanding that they are designed to be read topographically from altitude. You can't really make sense of them while you're standing in them. Just like the Nazca lines, which aren't just a Nazca. They stretch across the whole. You go from there north on the South American thing. Unfortunately, they're building houses and condos and communities on top of them. But the Nazca lines go all the way up of South America there, and it's
And they're crazy in themselves, aren't they? They're crazy in themselves.
Well, they're the blueprints for the structures that I love.
Yeah, I know, that's what you told me. Yeah, I remember.
So, and they're being destroyed. And the only thing that could be awesome is if you take them and you look at them and you compare them to the structures themselves and you see the correlation, then it'll open up people's eyes. But no one's willing to look. It's there. You can see in them.
That's awful, isn't it? Because the Americans want to say that America began in the 1700s, but it didn't. And it has the same things. You have the same things as we do.
Right. I think I'm really of the current belief that there was
of castles.
A repopulation. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I used to live. I lived in 90 minutes from me is the East Coast. Put my foot in the water. And when I was there, I saw lots of churches and things that, in retrospect, they could not have been built by the people of the time. I know this. I've built things in my life. I've been around more than half a century.
It may not be, in a way, what we would call modern, but they are far more advanced in another way.
Well, they are constructed to last forever. And the only way we take them down is with big, heavy machinery and dynamite. They will last forever. They won't fall down. They are made from composite materials. They were not lugged over with quarried stone. In fact, they've gotten past that point.
They could make something like that far back. They've had to have had machinery of some kind.
Yes, but right there, I don't understand how you can say that. Sentence can come out of your mouth that it's hard to understand how they blah blah blah. You have to understand that they had a civilization.
Only because they don't tell us it, do they? Like, our history doesn't have any of this in it.
Right.
But so
they had a civilization that was knowledgeable. They had knowledge. They knew what they were doing. They may not have had computers and iPads and iPhones, but they had the knowledge of how to make composite things. Like, we think cement is like the greatest gift to earth, and adobe blocks and mud huts and stuff.
I mean,
they were making rock.
That one with the flat top on it, that's quite a big structure, that is. It's enormous.
Yes, they are huge. They are like 900 by like 400 feet. They are big. Some of these
things near Hastings like that. I pointed them out and made it on a video. They've got the same things.
Right.
Me and Mickey saw them.
But the previous civilization, and they know how to do this. See, now, I've been playing with this pyramid for a decade and a half. Now they actually have people that are using, what do they call it? They call it water glass. I think it's limestone and some other thing is an aggregate. And they are making rock that people cannot tell the difference between it and what is in Egypt, because it's most likely the same exact construction. It also accounts for the nubs you see all over the place, because when you're making the rock,
What are nubs?
Okay. Do this. Can you open up a web browser?
Well, I can just go to on it. So we've got the mounds, and they're called nubs.
No, not on the mounds. If I was jumping around.
All right, I'm there now. I'm there, Angel.
All right, so you're at a thing where you can see a bunch of pictures.
We should cut that bit of video out, really. They don't need to see it.
That's fine. Do you see the top folder where it says Anna, Barbara, Carolina?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. Click on Carolina. I only have the side pictures in there right now, but you can even kind of see it. They're on the front. That doesn't really show a good example, because I was just sorting pictures the other day and I haven't put everything in there. But there are spots where there are rocks, and they have what looks like a nipple on them, a very obviously squared nipple that rounds out.
So we went all the way to there, and we're not looking at any pictures of it. We're looking at ones inside the.
Well, it's if you scope. I know I have photographs. I was just trying to sort my photos the other day.
Most of them are black and white.
I need to do 10 things at once. I need to be able to sort the videos, make a model, edit my webpage. I can only do.
I'm not having a go. But I'm saying we went all that way, and we did.
Why don't you just try to Google? I was just saying, anyone who's familiar with the pyramid and all the questions behind the rocks, and I'm sure if they don't, I wasn't set up to have a conference today. Let me get back to why we were talking about it, because if you make the rock composite, like you mix it like cement, you have to have a spot for the liquid to bleed out of the rock. to let the rock harden. And it's most easily done by putting a piece of burlap, and then you cut a hole and you burlap. And in doing so, it's going to leave a scar after everything hardens, just like the nipples that we see on the rock. And that is what happened masonry, if that's what you want to call it, when you're doing cement and stuff. When you make these things, it is just a fact of how it's made. Kind of like when you blow glass, there's a spot where you have to break it off. You know, there's always a spot you can find where it was
okay. Can I ask you something? Just asking. Do you think they put them there so they could work on the building, or you think they're for other reasons? I could get up there and I can stand there and I can cover this bit and do whatever.
Okay, so you're asking me why I think they are there?
Yeah, go on.
They are remnants and evidence that the rock was poured, not quarried.
Right. And so this place in Illinois, I've gone back to Illinois at the moment, so this place in Illinois.
Now, right. Illinois doesn't have that because, well, you don't know, because there it's dirt. If you dig down 3 feet, you hit rock.
Hmm.
That's what this thing is. But they don't let anybody dig on there because it's a national monument. So you can't go around digging on it.
There's quite a lot of earth to appear on the top of it, but you said they were made to be like that, maybe, so... It's just one of them's a platform.
Well, yes, that's because it's a geographical pattern which is designed to be read like Roman numerals from altitude.
Bit strange it's in Roman numerals there, but also
it's not in Roman. It's like Roman, like Braille. Right. You know how Braille is read, Morse code. You know, it's just a pattern that you translate. It is designed that somebody at that altitude can see it and translate it into a number, a mathematical equation.
So they were expecting quite big things to land on it then?
Nothing had to land on it at all. It was a waypoint. A buoy in the middle of the harbor is not designed to at all be. You don't dock to it. You don't touch it. It just gives you a reference point of where you are. So while you are navigating at altitude,
I thought you said they were landing stations.
Not these. No, those are things like the ones in South America. You're mixing apples and oranges.
Right, so you mentioned it earlier on. No.
There are airports, and then there are waypoints. Just like while you're sailing in the water, there are buoys that tell you where you are, and then there are docks that you dock to.
Okay,
but a buoy is not a dock.
You mentioned it earlier on, but anyway, this. So what do you think this was then?
A waypoint designed to be read from altitude, so you had a reference point of where you were while you are navigating the skies.
Oh. Right, okay. Wow. There seems to be, on one of the pictures, there's something sticking out of it. Is that something more modern then?
Well, being that I can't see your picture, I can't answer
that. There's like a little cottage stuck in the middle.
It is possible over thousands of years that somebody put a house on the side of it, and then they came around and said, we're making it a national park, and they said, well, I already live here, so you're going to have to grandfather me in, biatch. But I don't know because I'm not looking at the picture you're looking at.
Yeah.
But, you know, as it is now, we're building, like I said, we're building houses and condos and apartment malls on top of the Nazca lines on the South American continent. So we are not respecting the things that are here that we need to really document.
But I also think because that shows a different kind of history, and they don't care about that, do they?
Right. But that's what I was going to say, is that kind of goes back to the reason why we are destroying old world construction left and right as quickly as possible under the terms of renovation, that they are happy to put buildings on top of the Nazca lines, because then you can't go back and say, look, this is the Nazca line. This is the second pyramid. You see here how this is this long and this is that. Well, look at the proportions. These are the same. These are the blue, this structure. Well, there's a parking lot there, so we can't confirm that, even though 92% of it is the same.
Why would
because
they do
that
that?
one's different. Why are they tearing down old world construction left and right? They don't want us to know that at some point there was a previous civilization that had more knowledge of the world than we do. Or
which one is the Great Giza Pyramid? Is it the spider? I can't remember. The bird. The bird.
The bird is an icon, but that's. Are you looking for the blueprint?
Which one's the Great Giza?
You mean
the blueprint?
It is all on the same plane. The primary one is on that plane. The next structure is north a little. Well, it's almost the same way. It is in inverse. It's now that I look at it, it's a mirror image. It's north and then to the west, where on the plane it's south and to the west. And I don't know if they're actually in proportion. Now that you mention that, I really should look into that, or if they just scale it at different sizes. That's why when you look at them, when you watch the guy, there's a guy named JD in Canada. He spent a buttload of time. He made his website, you can find at blueprint.greatgizapyramid.com. And he really maps it out and puts it onto, which I don't have access to anymore, the Google Earth had where you could put trace lines and have it store what you wanted on there. And then that file, they then changed the website so the file doesn't work anymore. So while I have the data set, just like you had all the data set for where the sun and the moon were on that, one experiment, I have the data, but I can't plug it back into Google Earth anymore so that I can snap it to it. And I don't have a program that'll even let me look at it as a blueprint, which really is frustrating because every time I get a step forward, I get smacked backwards. Because when you look at the blueprint, it would make it a lot easier for me to pull it up on a screen and say, look, this is a photograph of the inside of the structure. This is a blueprint that marries the photograph. So can we stop pretending that it is not the blueprint of the structure?
So when you say the blueprint of the Great Giza Pyramid, it's not just one of the animals, it's loads of them are the blueprint.
It's the complex. The complex is like 7 buildings. It's the Karen building. Thanks to you, Karen.greatgizapyramid.com. You should learn how to get to that.
I thought we were talking about the Nazca lines.
The Nazca lines are the blueprints for the entire complex, not just the Great Giza Pyramid. It is one complex. It's like if you were giving the blueprints for Chernobyl, you wouldn't just give the blueprints for the containment zone.
I understand that. That one there
you would give the blueprints for the entire structure. Over here's generation. Over here is cooling. Over here is this. It's an entire system. It is not one structure by itself in the dark.
No, it's got a picture here with all the animals on. Why do you think they did it in animals?
The animals are... I'm not sure 100% if the animals themselves are anything more than signatures for relaying information. Carl thinks that they are relaying some information because of how they are shaped. But the issue I have is they're also, in some ways, demonstrating their knowledge. The spider itself happens to be a spider which is about the size of a flea, and it has a feature on it on one of its legs where its sex organ is actually on its paw, something you don't know unless you have a microscope. But yet these guys put it in a thing. So I think they were relaying knowledge, not just of the Great Giza Pyramid, but knowledge in general. Also, my goal, my focus is on the Nazca lines, the blueprints, not the scribbles and artwork to the side and around it, which is also in the area, but they are not lines. Those are squiggly lines. Those are not the Nazca lines. Those are artifacts. And some of those are actually on the side of mountains and things like that. The Nazca lines are all flat. They like to call them runways for spaceships. I don't care what they want to call them. They need to look at them. Somebody needs to actually take the time and document it on something other than a digital format, paper, so they can't be lost, of the lines as they are right now before they are lost. Because once they're gone, they're gone.
It's amazing that they've stayed, really. And you think they just sort of put it on the earth. It wasn't like
they're not going to go anywhere. They're like 10 feet wide, 4 feet deep of rock and stuff. Right. They're not going to move unless somebody moves them. They will stay for a really long time.
Mm.
But
well, they already have stayed a long time.
The knowledge is being lost. Just like if somebody started to take down that mound in the back of your, around the block from you. As soon as somebody says, hey, I'm going to take it down because we're going to build a hotel right here, we're going to get rid of it, the knowledge will then be lost forever. It'll be stories.
Well, all they want to do is take control of everything, like the pyramids, for instance, and lie about that.
Well, I think their current lie is just because they want tourism, not because they are actually trying to be deceitful. But that's
yes, they are.
only
They
because
want to
I
tell
look
you
at how
it's a
things
tomb. It's not a tomb. You told me it's not a tomb. It's a machine.
Right. They want to tell you it's a tomb. That's because they want to promote tourism. Who wants to go over there and look at an old factory? Honestly, you're going to get more tourism thinking it's a tomb. You're not going to get, no one goes over to Allentown to look at the old steel mill. No one. They don't do it. They'll go there to look at the old castle. They'll go there to look at the old bridge. We have the London Bridge in Arizona. People go there to look at a bridge. People don't go there to look at a factory that used to be there.
Mm.
So they're going to get more tourism thinking it's a king's thing. However, once I have a physical freaking model, it's going to be very hard to dismiss that if I model it exactly the same as how they have it, I get, plaster and I mold it exactly how it is, and it performs work, it does function. They're going to have to really bite their tongue very hard.
Well, I can't wait then.
Neither can I. I just need budget. I need a bunch of clay, a bunch of... I need plexiglass because I need to be able to make it opaque so you can see through it. I was thinking about using fish tanks and building it inside a fish tank, but even fish tanks aren't expensive. Been watching Craigslist for anybody giving away fish tanks. But I'm not... I don't have the luxury of having a 3-car garage that I can just build a big model in. And it kind of has to be large in order to work. You saw my smaller model. On a smaller scale, it's kind of hard to get water to do what you want. They are playing with...
I thought it was an excellent experiment, that one. Should we go and have a look at that one? Because I think it's excellent. Hang on, everybody.
You can pull that one up.
So, we found Angel's video... And what this was is it's an experiment that he did. And he puts the blue thing there, you can see the blue thing in the middle of the screen, buzzing with water, buzzing with what was happening in the pyramid. Carry on, Angel.
Right. Eventually, as when the pyramid comes to full function, the lower section will be the anode. I don't know how much experimentation you did in school, but when I was in school, we did a bit with a couple of beakers, and you put positive on one side, negative on the other. The positive side produced oxygen. You put a match to it. One side poofed, the other side barked, showing you that one was hydrogen, one was oxygen. So it was on the other, more
the structure
positive.
on one side to be more negative. It's back on now. Yeah, carry on.
Okay. You basically won the northern one, the one that everyone likes to call the Great Giza Pyramid. That one will turn into more or less a Van de Graaff generator. The outside of the structure is engineered. In fact, you can go to surface.greatgizapyramid.com and pull up the map. Remember that accordion-looking map with the waves on it?
Yeah, like music.
Yeah.
Well, sort of.
That right. What happened?
Sort of like music. Carry on.
Right. That music. What it would look like is. Yes, you could say it looks like the amplitude of a music thing when you're leaving somebody a voicemail. And the same way you have the waves of when you talk, you have the waves of the short between each of the corners of the structure, which will push the static electricity to the top of one structure. On the other structure, it's designed to vent it off. So it's the antithesis of it. One would be the one that collects it, we call negative because it has more electrons. And the other side we like to refer to as positive because it's the opposite of negative. Although, and in respect to itself, and because both of them are approximately the same height and up there in approximately the same altitude, then the way that it manipulates one collects, one relieves. That right there is the difference. One structure is positive, one structure is negative. There's a conduit of water between the two of them, and the only spots they connect to Earth. It's also going to play with the one in the way bottom, the subterranean chamber. But the center, the area called the ground cathode, between the two main structures, the anode is in the bottom of the ones. It's very hard for me to explain because the names of the structures, like we were arguing about the names of these nubs and how to point to it. Without a physical thing to show you, it's very hard for me. That's why I can't write a book. I can't write a book because I can't describe it. I need to describe it to somebody, and they need to understand it. But if I make a model, it's very easy. Battery, one side being negative, the other side being positive, and just let the machine come to work. What I was showing in the video that you're showing is if you just let a gas, I was just using air, come out of there, that as the gas exits that structure, it will be performing work. It actually makes a little slapping of the water as it bubbles out. Now, if you consider the fact that there are two gases at play, you can see between the gases, one being a lighter gas, how the structure is designed to coax the lighter gas back into the structure while letting the heavier can be demonstrated by using two gases that I dye in colors. I don't know how easy or hard that is. Maybe or I can just I can demonstrate it with gases with liquid, but they'll act differently. It's very hard to do a real demonstration or explanation, especially with common folk, because when you tell people, why do you think we call water H2O, sometimes they honestly give you a blank stare. They don't comprehend why we call it H2O. They don't understand that it is two elements bonded together to make one compound. We call the elements hydrogen and oxygen. We call the compound water. It takes 1.27 volts, I think it's 1.2600, millivolts or whatever, to break those elements apart. And inside of that soup we call water, every 6,000 particles is actually deuterium, which takes a tiny bit more electricity to run. Naturally, you will eventually create, or you won't create, you will isolate, because the light water will break into its respective gases. The heavy water will remain, and it will fill the system. And that is one of the harvests that they were looking for, because the system has no choice. You have electric batteries and, fill in their stuff. The water over time in their solar cells and stuff like that, if they're using lead-acid batteries, over time that water will get a heavier and heavier and heavier percentage, because the heavy water doesn't boil off. It's say boiling because I don't know what the other terminology to use. I'm sure in physics there's a better terminology to use.
Yeah, the water's coming out of this blue thing, but as it goes up there, you could say it was boiling, but it isn't. It's just bubbling.
Right. Well,
bubbling.
When you electrolyze water, you're kind of boiling energy to the water, but you're not doing it in the way of heat. You're doing it in the way of electricity, but then again, you could also look at the movement of electricity through the resistance of the water generates heat. It generates just enough heat to get it to separate its gases to boil in some ways, but it's not boiling because the total average has reached the boiling point. It's really just, it's not even boiling. It's breaking. It's you can call it a water breaker or a water cracker. I mean, these are in the alternative energy world. And I had the luxury of, I guess I can include myself in that. They throw the word water cracker around. Yeah, we're water crackers. It's the art of water cracking. Like Steve Myers, the guy that ran his car on water, he was a water cracker. He cracked the water, generating the two gases, which then were burnt back together, and then the exhaust was water vapor. So it was a process. But the idea is you want to separate the water into its respective gases with the least amount of effort possible. And if you can let nature do the work, once they're separated, burning them back together is a source of energy. And then that also is used. That's used in the area they like to call the King's Chamber, combustion chamber. Combustion chamber because you're combusting it back together. You're taking the oxygen from the outside air, the one and only conduit that exits the structure, and the hydrogen, which you're breaking out of the area they like to call the grotto. I call the cathode, because that's the cathode side of the reaction. Those two brought back together, and as they come down through this system, you play with them. Now, exactly the yield that they're looking for, there's a lot of things in the alternative energy world that they throw around. Helium-3. Hydrogen-3 is tritium. You got hydrogen, deuterium, and tritium. And then there's also quadridium, but I think that's more hypothetical, and I don't know how realistic it is. But I'm not going to put anything past the knowledge of the people who designed the system. I just want to recreate the system in reality and see what function it does. It's not going to do nothing. At the worst case, it's going to be a really cool, pretty waterfall. But I think it's a functioning, really pretty, cool waterfall. And it may be something that a compound is created that we don't appreciate, or maybe kind of like, the transmission of electricity, which we were told wasn't allowed to happen. But then again, in the late 90s, US Robotics used to have a wireless charger for their cell phone until magically they went out of business. And now they've reincorporated that exact same technology into all the new line of phones, because they say, well, you know what? We kind of want to do it now. Back then, we didn't want to tell them it was possible, even though it was. But now we're going to quietly release it because Starbucks used to put it on all their tables and they made a big deal about it. We can't really put the genie back in the bottle. We smacked US Robotics down really hard. Popped up.
Angel, are they using... Oh, the video's just finished. Hang on. So Angel, Angel's talking to the whiteboard at the moment on another video. 11 years ago you made this. That's incredible. But anyway, dielectric. Explain that bit again. I was saying, is it dielectric they were using?
That's what I'm saying. I am not a mathematician physicist. I do not wish to try to... How they classify each type of electricity, I really can't tell you if battery A is using this type and battery B is using that type. I just know they store the electricity and then they release the electricity, and or which direction the electricity is using. When you have something which has an abundance of electrons and something that has a less of an abundance, nature abhors a vacuum, and they're going to go from greater to lesser unless there's a barrier or resistance. And that is what this whole system plays with, is as the electrons are moving from point A to point B, they are doing work. The work they are doing is as they move through the system, just like when you hook the battery to the experiment in that I may or may not be showing on the screen. If you have one on electrolysis, that one would be the experiment I'm talking about. As the electrons move through the water on one side of the reaction where the electrons are coming into the system, it's going to release hydrogen, right? Yes, and as the electrons are moving out of the system, they release oxygen. If I get it correctly. Oh wait, the positive side is the one giving electrons to the system. So the electrons go from as they come into the system, they release the oxygen. As they pull out of the system, they release hydrogen. Now, how you call that electricity, how the movement, like covalent bonds and hexavalent bonds and whatever bonds, that is not something that I really am on top of, and I really don't really care. Like they have caloric energy, and you have electrostatic energy, and you have
it's a bit much, isn't it, all the time? There's just so much to learn and so much to talk. Okay,
right. But what I look at is kind of like Tesla said. You look at the resonant, ambient, frequency, and force. He said vibrations, energy, and something else. But I look at any point in this system, you say, what is the resonant, ambient, frequency, and force here? What is the resonant, ambient, frequency, and force there? And which direction will it go? If there's more force, like pressure, it's going to want to go to where there's less pressure. If it's a higher frequency, it's going to want to relieve to a lower frequency. If there's higher, whatever it is, it wants to equal out with a different part. And that equaling out, even if it's water, you put a tube of water and you put water flowing into the tube on one side, the water on the other side is going to raise to equal out. The whole system is different pressures playing with themselves. And again, this is where a model would be more visual to people to see of what exactly it's doing. And I hope to eventually build said model and show function. The problem is it has to be on a larger scale, probably something fairly large, because they're working on this in areas where there's about a 1 foot deviation that they're playing with when it all gets down to it over the course of a quarter mile. Now, I'm sure we can squish it together, but I still need a fairly large area to work with because bubbles need time to settle, and water and stuff needs time and space to settle. If you have it as too small of a thing, you're not going to get the true function. because the bubbles won't have time to settle, which is the problem I had with my experiment, is the bubbles were too violent, where in the structure itself, because it's in a large room, the bubbles will settle out before they reach the wall, so they don't bubble under the edge, which is something that wouldn't happen in the structure because it is so large. The violence would settle before it, to keep the water elevation there. The bubbles were just bubbling right out. They were never settling, so I could build up pressure to actually show a shock wave. That was, and I didn't have at the time. I should have just stepped on the water.
Everything inside this place was highly tuned.
It is the elevation that is exactly, yeah. Which is why, if I could point out on the Nazca lines, you can see it's like a big blueprint. It is specifically designed. There's no guesswork in it. They didn't arbitrarily make one and then the other one and then somebody else made another one a couple of decades later. They were made together as a system.
Why do you think they put it there when the pyramids are miles away? Was that a blueprint for all pyramids?
No, okay. You asked two questions in one.
Sorry.
Why did they put it there? Because that's where they had a spot to put it. I can't answer that. Maybe that place on the earth wasn't very well populated. I could go with that. Maybe that was their UN green zone where they let nature play and survive, and that's what fed the world its oxygen, because they had like the Brazil and everything over there to be their rainforest. They said, we're not going to populate that island. Well, though they did populate that island, because they've got pyramids and shit down there too. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that word. Down there too. So they didn't populate that section. You know what? I didn't sit on that board meeting. What I do, I can tell you what I did. I can't tell you why they did. I just know that they did. They're there.
Yeah.
They exist.
But it just seems a long way to go to do them. But do you think there are more other places, but we just don't see them because that doesn't have any grass on it?
It is very possible that we have destroyed things like that.
Or big floods have happened. I reckon there's been a big flood, and it happened when a big electrical arcing happened at the Himalayas and pushed the Himalayas up. There was a sea up there, and everything happened all very quickly.
Right.
Tsunamis, probably earthquakes, everything happened. It just nearly destroyed us. So I do get that, and that probably ruins Africa and most of Europe. That's why it's and the Middle East. That's why it's sand, because it took the topsoil off.
Well, if you remember a decade ago, we were chasing a structure, a line that went across Europe and Asia.
The wall.
The wall.
Yeah, because what it is they only ever talk about the Great Wall of China, which actually was Russian. It's facing the wrong way, so it was to keep the Chinese out. And in the end, they gave China a part of Russia, whatever happened there.
I think
it goes across. And for a while, we were researching it, weren't we? And it went in some places. Artists got it to go in so many countries. He couldn't find it all the way round or across.
Right, which is because there's probably spots where there was floods or, things that covered it or broke it naturally over time.
But it's strange that there isn't just the Great Wall of China. There was a wall between.
Right. It was evident. It was very dead on, straight as straight could be, that if you lost it somewhere, if you just kept going in that line, you would pick it up, and there it was. So there are lots of things that could have been destroyed over the centuries. So, that is quite possible. I am thankful that they still, 80% exist. And if we could please actually pay attention to how the Nazca lines are the blueprints for the complex. And when you look at them, they're confusing because they're looking at the complex, when you look at the lines, like if you take the game Tron, the stick figure old 3D, and then you look at it through all three structures as stick figures, it's confusing when you look at it if you don't understand that's what you're looking at. And they do that so they can show the elevations and how they work in proportion. But it's really confusing when you look at it. And the other thing is, when you look at the Nazca lines themselves, they're not just 10 feet wide, 4 foot high rock. In some areas, the rocks have pattern to it. That's because it's done just like blueprints. Different, when you look at blueprints, you have different pencils represent different things. Some things are walls, some things are doors, some things are measurement. Of course you can.
Just this one bit, right? What it was is, a while ago, I was making this video because China has these hills or mountains, whatever you want to call them, and they're all done in different coloured sands. And then I thought about it, and I thought, oh my God, we go to the Isle of Wight for that. At the Isle of Wight, you can buy different coloured sands. And I was thinking, yeah, and that's got grass on the top. So now we don't see the different coloured sands like you do in China on the hills because we've got sand on the top. I was thinking, I wonder how many other places have this myriad of sands, different colours, all in the same spot. And what that means, really. Same sort of thing, though, just different coloured sands. Different properties, don't they? Some are more magnetic. I just wondered what it meant for the old sun above. But now, say in the Isle of Wight, those are under the sand, so you only see them as they're taking the cliff away, you know, on the cliff face. But you don't see it from above. But in China, you can see it from above because there's no grass. Anyway, I finished now.
Okay. I'd have to say I'm not familiar with that, and I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. It was just a comment. It's just like, we wouldn't know that there's probably lots of other places that have the same kind of thing, but they've got grass on there, so you don't see it.
Well, yes, there are. I would have to think that they would have not just used, Peru, whatever, Nazca, to make this. That because it is not just in that area. It stretches north quite a bit. It is like the top third of South America is dedicated. The top east third of South America is dedicated.
Does that mean it's near
to the
Brazil
blueprints
then?
Of this structure.
Is it near Brazil then, or it's just further down?
Brazil is more to the and west, north and west. Brazil is to the east. Brazil is the east side of South America. And if there are Nazca lines in Brazil, we'd never find them. Because there are still headhunting, will eat you alive cannibal people that live in Brazil. To this day, there will eat you alive cannibal people living in Brazil. So, we're not going to find that out for a while.
So
unless
today, in our conversation, we've done Tartaria, the fact the buildings had to be much older than they say they were and have been there a lot longer. We looked a bit at the pyramids. We've done your video which explains how you could show the gases coming out of the water. So you've got
my goal was to show function. If I make a larger thing, you will see function. It will do something. You'll see a shock wave go through the water and be like, well, that's really weird. Then you say, why did they do that? Well, we can work into why. But first, people have to visually see that is what it would do if my suggestion is correct.
Can I ask you something? Why did they have to be so big? Because obviously when you showed the pictures, the structure bit
they have to. I believe the reason they have to be so big is because they are basically taking a small pool size of water and pushing down on the top with oxygen gas. And then, because the water will now be upset because it is under pressure, on the other side of the equation, something is bleeding out of the water to equalize itself. You're giving the water nowhere to go. And something comes out of it. Nature does something. What nature does, I don't know. But whatever it is, I don't know. This is why I need to
took
build
like the
it to
helium
find out.
and then they added it back together. Is that the bit you're talking about?
Well, the whole system works. It does. This is where it would be a lot easier to point out. The center. Can you? You can't.
No. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll do another hangout, and you can show that.
Right.
Next time, the next talk we have, we can explain that. Yeah.
All right. I can do that.
It's still amazing that you worked all that out, though, Angel, because you're probably only one of the only people talking about the pyramids like you do. You're the only one.
Anybody can do it. All they have to do is actually look at the structure. Don't listen to the stories.
I know, but you're the only one that has put it so accurately to this.
Well, because I'm not as blind to the world that, I don't like believing the stories as much as I like actually, I knew the story was a lie. Just like, when you know something is a lie, then you know there's a truth. And as long as you get some things that you can actually pin down, this is true. The physical structure itself has been pretty well documented that we know a lot of the intricacies of it. We don't know all of them because, we can get them. They want to drill holes and stick balloons into areas where they could very easily just fly a drone into other areas and actually get the real configuration. But again, if it's left to have an area where they can say that's not true, because you don't have a picture that says, look, this is the car that ran me over. Well, no, you said it was a blue car and this one might be teal, and we don't have an actual description. If they don't want definitive answers. Number one, the Giza Antiquities people don't want it because it will kill their cash cow if people come to the light and see that it may not be a tomb. That's number one. Number two, people that work for like the Rand Corporation don't want it because it'll show that it'll definitively show that there was a higher degree of knowledge of the elements that we live in today than we had up until about a century and a half ago. We didn't know what hydrogen was, what oxygen was. Hypothetically, we didn't know. I think there's a group of people that did know, that have been using electricity and electroplating and colloidal silver and stuff like that for centuries that you can see through history. But our taught history is we just discovered it. And they don't want to admit that there was somebody of greater knowledge at some point in the past because that destroys the whole theory of evolution. The theory of evolution shows that we are the most knowledgeable people currently on the face of the surface of the earth.
Sorry. Most controlled, you mean? Most controlled?
Most controlled. I'm not going to argue with any of these things, but this is what is taught. Am I wrong?
That's okay. They still got that as a burial chamber. Why would you have all that stuff in there if it was a burial chamber?
Well, because that fits the story.
And I mean, why would you have so much of the structure? That it would just be a cone, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be anything else. There's all that stuff in there for a start.
Well, I don't even entertain the idea of anything to do with a burial or a king.
No.
I don't think the Egyptians had anything to do with it either.
No, that just puts it in with the pharaohs, doesn't it? But it's not true. They inherited them.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident of that as well.
I must admit, I did put it out, Angel, but it was... I thought, I'm not showing this to Angel. It was, oh my God, what's his name? I can't think of his name now. He made a little video, John Levy, and he said that there was this map in the 1700s and it didn't mention the pyramids.
Well, I'm not saying they're old school construction.
But even if they were 200 years ago, we couldn't have still built them 200 years ago with what we've got, what they said we had. It still couldn't have happened.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah, but they're probably, I think they're older. Just, you know, like, how old would you say the Nazca lines are? It's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
They're old enough that we don't know who made them.
Yeah, and, you know, history goes back a certain way. I was a bit upset, really, because before the Romans, there was another set of them, and they looked just like the Romans again. And they were called something else, and I thought, how pathetic's that? They still look like the Romans, still wore the same sort of things. They were called something else. So how do we know? Because they completely lied about things. Can you imagine it? If you went to Egypt, you'd be there for about 10 years, and you'd just be stuck in that in the pyramids all day long. You'd been there for years.
Well, I would get a 3D hand scanner, and I would walk everywhere I could physically walk, and then I would reconstruct it in silico, and then try to 3D print certain sections to exact scale and see what I get.
And don't forget, you've also got to fight the bit that they told everybody that there was capstone that's missing, whereas you don't think it had the capstone. That was because
I know it.
in different areas because they were doing things. It was doing things.
Look at the top. Look at the top. There is nothing missing. That is a finished top.
Yeah, I know.
A capstone up there, as I pointed out, would be 29 feet by 29 feet, would be 40 feet tall. From the base, it doesn't look big, but it's actually huge up there. There is no capstone missing from there. A capstone would neuter its whole function.
But I don't think anybody's really broken it down like you to say there was a positive one, a neutral one, and a negative one, pyramid, in those three. You're still the only one that's done that, and that they're all built on different levels. They might look a certain way on a picture, but one of them definitely, the biggest one's built further down, isn't it, in the ground?
Correct.
I do listen sometimes. But people don't realise that. And then what it was is, they never show you it from aerial, that there's a great big drop down the side, and it's built on top of this sort of big hill, and they built that to make the pyramids. Same sort of thing, isn't it, as in your pictures? Because the other one is the mound of earth to make this thing. You said a beacon, like a beacon. But they
right,
still...
Now, I don't know if they found the ground that way, or they, at this point, I'm not putting it past them to move heaven and earth. Mover, they will, they will move a mountain.
Yeah, 2 seconds, that video finished, but we're now looking at Angel's YouTube channel, and he has quite a few videos on there.
Well, I honestly do have to trim a lot of them off of there, because I came to the realization that I was incorrect on part of my assumption, and as such, I need to remove a bunch that follow my incorrect mind thought. I had always
felt...
You're
allowed to change your mind and move things on a bit. I'm glad that you do, because we've all done that, even with Flatty and everything. 10 years ago, I thought, that happened like that. But we had to say the sun and the moon at hundreds of miles away. But now I think, Oh my God, it's about a mile away. If only people realise the one in your environment is close. Very, 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 very close. So change my mind about that. You do sometimes.
I had felt that the system had to feed from what they wanted to call the entrance. But I have come to the realization that that one is actually fed from the center one. And then the water, everything else about it is the same, except for where the source of the water comes into the into the first, the primary structure, the one everyone likes to call the Great Giza Pyramid. Its source is actually through the grotto, through the holes drilled in the southern wall of the grotto. I thought that was for extraction.
Not that long ago. And what's the grotto called?
Well, it's the area I like to call the catalyst, the cathode. It is the side where the hydrogen gas.
That was our last hangout, wasn't it?
Well, I've been saying that for decades. Nothing changes about how the gases move within the containment vessel. It's just where the water source comes in is I needed to correct.
But you're now going to do a different hangout next time now.
We can do that.
Yes, next time. We'll get the pictures up so you can show. But Angel, it's always a pleasure doing stuff with you because you have so much to say.
One of these times, if I'm prepared and it's not New Year's Eve,
no,
we can do video.
It's our New Year's Eve chat and it's turned into a hangout. But it's always a pleasure.
Everyone have a great New Year's. By now it's New Year's, so it's 2026. Last year was the year of the pyramid. This year I'm going to make a model. I can make it the year of the balloon.
Good for you, my darling. Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed that. It's always interesting listening to you and even re-explaining things because I don't think maybe people don't think. Some people don't think. I don't know. It's always good to re-explain.
Once I get a working model, and I'll show it to you, I would like to see if you can sit there and say, "Oh, I see how you mentioned that," and see if what parts click, because you're like one of my only true test subjects.
Am I? Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's why one of the pyramids is called Karen's. What's it called? Karen's. Karen. In Jimbo. Come on, what am I saying? In Angel's work, it's Karen. Yeah.
Now, in the reminiscence, on here in the States, we call it Karen, somebody who's controlling, like a helicopter mom. Don't do that. Don't go so fast. Slow down. Turn your music down. You know that. So their name is called a Karen. It's a controlling body. When you look at that structure, that one structure is the one. No, well, it's
so
wasn't named that way. I didn't mean it that way.
Yes, you did.
I'm just saying.
I'm going to tell you off when we're off air. Angel. Here is that thing. It's just come up because I was just putting my browser over the videos. Is the music-y one, just showing that they made. That's how the stones stick out, and it looks a bit like a music sheet. Anyway, carry on.
Gotcha. Right. Well, I was saying. When it all washes down, that one actually controls the elevations of the water within parts of the system. When it all is flowing, I told you, how it bubbles into there, maintains the pressure, and then bubbles out. When you look at it, which is easy to go to karen.greatgizapyramid.com, it's a 3D image. You can zoom around in there, and you can see. If you turn a little bit to the right and down, that there's a hole there about 3 inches in diameter. That marries the hole in the grotto. That is where the pressure is equalized between those two rooms. So I called it Karen because I was on the phone with you and I had to give it a name right there, right then to make a link. You can go to karen.greatgizapyramid.com. So I didn't make it because it was the controlling vessel. I named it that because I was on the phone with you at the time. It just happens to be the controlling vessel.
Anyway, Angel, what are you doing for New Year's Eve? Are you doing anything nice?
Sleeping.
Sleeping.
Yeah, you're going stag, man.
Okay. But you are going to do another hang. We'll do it soon. We'll do it in a few weeks' time, yeah?
Yep.
Just going through your videos. But if I put the recorder on and you talked 11 years ago, you'd probably still be going now.
I would, if you give me enough time.
Yeah, you like talking about the subject very much, don't you, Angel? You live, breathe.
Well, I want someone to understand it. Say, no, that couldn't work. In reality, a bubble wouldn't go up to the surface of the water. In reality, a drop of water wouldn't go down the side of the hill, down the side of the wall till it joins the body of water. It wouldn't do that. No, that's just not the way water works. But in reality, it is the way water works. It is the way gases work. And nothing I'm saying doesn't make sense if you actually pay attention to it.
Anyway,
I don't have to put sonic oscillators. I don't have to put anything other than point out that they found a way to use Earth's energy, caloric energy, whatever name you said, detrimite energy, whatever it is, whatever type of energy it is the movement of little electrons from point A to point B, and they found a way to tap that. And once they found a way to tap it, they made it do the simplest thing there is, which is kind of like what we do. We make steam gas, and we make that gas do work. Here they just separated it into its basic gases, and then let those basic gases do work.
They did. I know you. Well, you just work so hard, don't you? Let's go through a book here with your diagrams in, loads of diagrams. You're a genius, Angel. A genius.
I don't think I'm a genius. I just think I'm driven.
Well, you're the only one that's talking like this.
Well, I'm 1 in a billion. What can I say?
Yeah. But we're going to
now find someone.
Oh, carry on.
Find somebody that likes me, and I'll marry them.
I like you. You gonna marry me?
Yes. Well, they made a book, 50 Shades of Grey. To be honest, I'm 256 Shades of Grey. So.
I was only joking. Anyway, it's been a really nice chat with you, and thank you very much. It's only got to put the pause button on, and then we'll be back in 2026. Anyway, thank you, Angel. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and the very, very clever Angel. Angel?
Yeah.
Okay, go say goodbye now.
Are we off?
No, you've got to say goodbye, and then I'm turning it off.
Goodbye now. Happy New Year's.
Okay, thank you, everybody.